So, story time with Mr. Lawrence. In the before time, long, long ago of 2000, Clintons roamed the earth, and we had no Wi-Fi, and we had a little film called Frequency. And despite having an interesting concept and better than average Garth Brooks power ballad as its theme, Frequency, really, I don't believe many people saw it, but the concept was interesting enough that I think most people knew about it. And here, almost 20 years later, we have another film that I fear is kind of destined for the not many people know about it bin, with the same concept tweaked a bit, and no Garth Brooks power ballad, which some people may see as a positive. For me, I think it's a shame, because I want people to know about this movie. I think this is a better than average, kind of out of nowhere release. If I hadn't gone and seen 47 Meters Down Part 2, I wouldn't have known they were even making this movie. So you see, some good came out of it. So in this review, I'm going to be making comparisons to Frequency a lot. So, sorry, it's not a sequel, it's not a reboot, it's just kind of something that's playing with the same concept. So, it's only natural to kind of compare the two and see how they stack up. So if you haven't heard of this movie, and odds are you haven't, so our main character is a police officer played by David Oyelowo. I'm trying to make sure I pronounce his name right. I looked up how to do it because I want to show the guy respect. And he's really close with his little niece Ashley, played by Storm Reed is the young lady's name. And one night, Ashley and her family are murdered. So, of course, our hero is in, mourning, and then suddenly, from out of nowhere and for no real discernible reason, he gets a phone call from Ashley. Only it's Ashley of the past calling him in the future. So now, once they're convinced that this is actually happening, the David Oyelowo of the future and the Storm Reed of the past have to team up to try to solve and prevent the murders. Much, again, like the case of Frequency, wherein, a freak electrical storm allowed a young man to use a ham radio, look it up on the internet, to contact the exact same ham radio as owned by his father, Dennis Quaid, back, 20 years ago, and they try to work together to solve his mother's murder. So, so you see the two films kind of are on that similar track. Where they differ is in the details. And I don't think necessarily, if you looked at it, one is better than the other. I think they're both kind of equal. There are some things I think this film does a little better. I think if I was comparing it to, I would say I think this is the superior movie. So first of all, when you have a film with a high concept like this, especially time travel or time displacement or changing the past or anything temporal, it's a tricky thing, because temporal stories, time travel stories, have a way of coming back and biting you on the ass and just making the audience go blind with logic problems and questions. Look at the last couple seasons of Lost. Of course, look at Lost as a whole. Maybe that's not the best example. So you've got to be careful in how you utilize it. One of the things I like that this film does that Frequency didn't do is it gives no explanation, or maybe it does. It gives kind of an explanation as to how and why the time travel is happening. It does. In Frequency, it was the electrical storm, and the ticking clock was that the storm was going to pass and they weren't going to be able to be in contact anymore, so they were trying to save everybody before the storm passed. All right, fair enough. Here they don't really give an explanation. The only explanation they kind of give is that David Oyelowo says at the funeral that I prayed to God for a do-over. So maybe it's a holy kind of intervention thing. They never really go into that. But I like that there's no explanation. I think in certain things like this or any of those movies, with the Groundhog Day kind of situation, where you get to do the day over 500 times, I think sometimes not having a solid explanation, but one that the audience kind of has to guess at or assume, is always better for the story. I think it weighs the story down to try to explain how something happens. Hence, the incredible shittiness of Happy Death Day to You. Yes, that was the only thing that made that movie horrible. The other thing I like about this one, over frequency, is again the ticking clock. As opposed to the future and past events being separated by several decades, here they're separated by a couple weeks. So the ticking clock is not the storm passing, but it's the murders are going to happen. And time passes the same for both of them. When it's Tuesday in the past, it's Tuesday in the future or the present, however you want to look at it. See, I'm already getting confused trying to describe this. So the ticking clock is more, the murder is going to happen, the murder is coming, and we gotta fix it, we gotta stop it. It also does some neat things with, of course, you have a story like this, of course you're going to have that instance where you change something, but it's not enough. The murder still happened, but now little things have been changed, and you have to now incorporate those little things into the knowledge you already have. So here's kind of the two sides of the coin kind of thing. On the one hand, in the temporal elements of the mystery, it's pretty fun and pretty well done, and I like the, you change things but not enough, and now things are different, and I liked that element of the mystery, watching them kind of solve the mystery, and the pieces they pick up is interesting in how that works with someone who already knows the things that are going to happen and the person who doesn't, but there's still a lot of questions. So I think that's a really good mystery. The other problem is it's not a very good mystery, because there are like two other people in this movie aside from our main characters, and if you're doing a murder mystery, it's going to be one of the other fucking characters you've met. That's just common sense. I would love it if one of these movies would have it be, and the murderer is, who the hell are you? Well, I'm the secret drug dealer you've never met. What, you think you know everybody who's committing crimes in LA? But the murderer is pretty easy to guess at, even if the why and how and all that aren't necessarily. But pretty much, I won't spoil it, but pretty much, again, there's only two other guys, so it's not hard to guess. But the minute the guy showed up, I was like, it's him. Just, I've seen movies before. I'm sorry. So the act of solving, maybe if you look at it more like an episode of Columbo, the act of solving the mystery is more interesting than knowing who the killer actually was. So those are story details. What I gotta give it up for, and I think what makes this movie work really well, is the acting. And you get some great performances from our two main actors. David Oyelowo, I'm sorry if I mispronounced his name. I swear to God, I looked it up and I'm trying really hard. Is one of those really great and underrated character actors. He's a guy who I've seen in multiple things, but he's such a chameleon, and he plays so many different roles that I never know it's the same guy. But he's so good. And I think that's what you needed for this role. You didn't need... I think this film would have suffered with someone like a Denzel. Someone who, the name precedes the person. I think you needed an actor who could be an everyman and show an everyman trying to deal not only with the extreme trauma, the extreme ticking clock, but an extreme situation. And he does it really well, and a lot of times it's with a lot of facial expressions and little things. There's a good scene where when he's first getting the calls, he runs a little test, as anyone who's in a time travel situation would. He tells the niece of the past to go into her father's woodshed and take a can of spray paint and spray paint an X on it. And she says, "All right, I'll call you back when it's done." And he's sitting there watching it, waiting for the X to show up in the present. And it's a fairly short couple seconds of screen time, and it's all of him just kind of looking at it and anticipating it, and then you see it in his face and his eyes, just this kind of, this is crazy. And he starts to laugh. This is so fucking crazy. And then it happens, and it's like, oh shit, So I think he was the right actor for this, and I don't think this is going to be a star turn for him, but I like it when I see good actors doing good work in good movies, especially ones whose filmography is as varied and as interesting as his. I like his stuff a lot. I gotta give Storm Reed, who plays Ashley, the niece, a ton of credit. Man, what a load this young actress, or actor, I'm sorry, I should know better than that. What a load that young actor hauled in this film. And especially since the last two films I've seen, the daughter characters or the younger characters have been some of the most annoying and poorly written and irritating. I didn't feel that with her. She really did some heavy lifting, and not only just in the acting, but stunt work, running, jumping, climbing trees. I wonder if she's ever ridden a bike before. She seemed very uncertain every time they had her mount that bike and get started. There's only one really awkward scene in this film, and that's when she's running away from the bad guys every time, and she has to go out, get on the bike, and try to run away. She goes out, she's very carefully setting the bike up, swinging her leg over it, trying to get on the pedals. It's a very slow mount, and I'm just like, that was, on the one hand, it does look like a kid, doing it. It's not like a staged moment. But on the other hand, I'm like, you got a gun-toting maniac coming out after you, sweetheart. You might want to start pedaling. That's the only real awkward scene in the moment. I don't think that's her fault. But acting-wise, man, she pulls somebody. And the two of them work so good together. Which is also difficult when you consider that so many of their scenes, they're acting with the phone. So I think that's a credit to both of them as actors, is that whether they had the actor off stage or just off camera, delivering their lines, so they had somebody to react off of, but there's no one else on a lot of those scenes on camera with them to share those moments with. You're having to do it. It's almost like acting, I just recently rewatched Who Framed Roger Rabbit. So it's got to be a little, almost like doing that, of trying to react to somebody who's not there. You can't see their eyes. You can't, all you have is the inflection of their voice to go on. You have to base your performance off that. That's not an easy thing to do. And both of these actors do it really, really, really well. So I think they really, they cast well, and I think that is one of the things that makes this a better than average movie. And Alfred Molina is in this. I love Alfred Molina. I don't see Alfred Molina enough. I love Dr. Octopus. He's phenomenal. I love him. I also, in talking about that, let's talk about the directing. I think the directing is, for the most part, pretty good. And again, when you're dealing with things like temporal anomalies or two storylines taking place in two time periods, it's, things can get muddy. But I think the director, and he's the screenwriter as well, he wrote the script, does a neat job of a lot of juxtapositions, where the one thing is happening in the present, another thing's happening in the past, they're happening simultaneously. He really has the visual. I talk to my directing students a lot about, your visual metaphor and things like that. And one of the visual metaphors being used very strongly here is that, these time periods are occurring, at the same time. And there's a bigger word for that I had, and then I lost it, so I stopped so I didn't sound like an idiot any more than I normally do. So a lot of these scenes being juxtapositions, the dialogue being overladen from the past onto the future and then back again, kind of show these events and how they're affecting one another. Is a really there's a probably one of the best scenes in the movie is a scene in a diner where David Oyelowo tells Storm Reed that she's calling him in the future and all this, and she's sitting on one side of a booth in the past, he's sitting on the other side in the future, and they're going. I have a feeling the way they did that, I mean, I don't think this is a camera trick. I think they probably had both actors positioned there and just switched the camera back to get their reactions. But I think in terms of shooting two time periods, consecutively, it really sold the emotion, and both actors really pulled their weight. I'm sweating. That's why I keep going from the back of my head. It's hot out. So I think, and they do that a number of times in this, and it's very effective. Here's the thing, though. If we're talking about flaws, I think number one, it drags. It's very drawn out, and I think they could have tightened it up a bit. I have a feeling from watching it, the director really wanted emotion and the familial ties and all of that to really be pulling at the heartstrings as you're watching it, and that's a nice concept to go with. But unfortunately, in some scenes, it drags us down. I think we could have tightened the script up a bit, tightened the directing, made it a little bit more suspenseful, really get that. I mentioned before, I liked the ticking clock kind of thing, but there are some scenes in this where I lost track of what day it was, where we were, and then at the same time, I'm like, okay, you got a ticking clock here, we need to pull this together a little quicker. Keep it intense. Okay, that being said, though, I have to say, the climax of this movie is super intense. It's really good and really well done, really good directing and editing in it. As again, two really intense scenes are taking place in the past and in the future. It's a really so the movie is slow. It hits those and it's like, shit. Things happen. I'm like, oh fuck, that kind of thing. So the pacing drags it down a little bit. And the other thing again that drags it down a little bit is it's the mystery. How they solve it is interesting, but the mystery is not, because you're always like, there's two fucking people in this aside from them. If you're going to do a convincing murder mystery, you need to have some more suspects. I'm not saying you have to do an Agatha Christie and have, a dude with a monocle and a pipe and the harlot woman and the uptight librarian and the long-lost son and all that. You don't need all that, but you need some more people who kind of say, okay, if you're doing a murder mystery, you got to have some people for the audience to guess that. When you have two other options, it's like, well, flip a coin, odds are you're going to come up with the right one. Since so much of the movie is based on solving the mystery, I think that's maybe where it comes in a little slow. I think that's why it might have felt a little slow to me, is because, again, had the mystery solved, so what are we watching? So all that being true, I think this movie deserves better than it's going to get. Again, this is a film that the trailer came out, and then the next week it was out. I didn't, and it's tucked away in one of the in the smaller theaters here. Not so much tucked away. It's in both of our big metroplexes, but that's a transformer. Multiplexes, whatever you want to call them. So you can see it, and I urge you to see it because it's a good movie. I don't think it's going to light the world on fire. I don't think it's anything genre redefining. I don't think it's It's not really a star turn for anybody in it. I don't think these are going to be Oscar-worthy performances later in the year. But I do believe that it's a tightly directed, very interestingly directed, and very well acted film that makes the most out of its core concept without making it feel like it's cheesy or again, because playing with time travel is a difficult thing to do, and so I think they use just enough of the cliches to make it work, and are very careful about pulling back when they need to. So final grade for Don't Let Go. I'm going to say a solid B on this one. Not a B plus, not a B minus. A solid B. I think I was entertained while I was watching it. I was very appreciative while I was watching it. I just think that I don't know what else they could have really done to, put it over the top. But I have a feeling it's going to be one of those movies that I saw, I liked, but then when I go back and look at my list of films at the end of the year to make up my list, I'm going to go, what was that one? Oh, yeah. So, I don't know, I may have just shot it in the foot. I didn't mean to do that. Because it is good. And if you're like me and you had some time, Labor Day weekend, go check it out. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Sometimes I think that's maybe the best way. It's a movie that you can go see and have some fun, and see some pretty good actors. Okay, I feel like the more I talk, the more I am burying this movie. I feel like I just booked this movie to wrestle John Cena at WrestleMania. So I feel like I just buried it, and I didn't mean to do that. I was trying to talk it up, and man, I sucked at doing that. I'm sorry. Don't Let Go. I honestly meant to do you better than that. But anyway, so yeah, B. It's a B movie, please, and not in the way of a B movie. Okay. I'm gonna shut up now. It was a good movie. I liked it. You should watch it. I'm gonna go now. Drive safe, and I'll see you at the movies.